Hello, everyone. My name is David May, and I'm the interim president at Eastern Washington University. And I'm here with Dr. Frank Velázquez, who's the interim health officer for the Spokane Regional Health District here in Spokane. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Velázquez, for taking some time for us today. I know that our students and our faculty and our staff and our larger community have some questions about vaccine for COVID-19, and I know that you're my go-to guy to help me understand how things work.
Well, thank you, David. Pleasure to be here with you, and look forward to have a conversation because one of the things that makes this region very different is our high density of college campuses and college students, so they're very important to us, and want to make sure that they have as much information as they need to make the right decision.
That's great. How safe is this vaccine, Dr. Velázquez?
Well, if you look at all the studies, and the studies keep coming out, because we're now looking long-term and we're looking at multiple age groups. So through every single age group, the safety of the vaccine has been proven and determined. If you look at the potential side effects, they're minimal, and they're in a very, very, very small percentage of the people. Most of what you're going to see is actually your body reacting, which is called reactogenicity, and that's what causes some of those, I feel kind of like out of a sores, I may spike a fever. So the safety of the vaccine has been proven in most groups, all groups that have been studied, and now we're actually looking at safety in the vaccine in some of the age groups and other groups like pregnant women that we did not have in the original clinical trials. And thus far, all of the information points to a high degree of safety.
So the side effects aren't dangerous. They're actually part of the process?
Well, so whenever you get a vaccine, one of the things that is going to happen, your body is going to react. And you actually want your body to react. That means the immune system is going into high gear, and you're going to feel a little bit of pain in the area because of local reaction. You may feel a little bit tired. You may spike a fever for a day. You may get like you feel out of sorts, almost like a mild case of the flu, which usually lasts between 1 and 3 days. Most people is about 24 hours, some people up to 3 days. You can tell over the counter medication, and that will take care of it. The potential for other more severe side effects is negligible.
Wow. So I have a lot of college students and college faculty who are worried about returning to the classrooms in the fall after a year of being in remote learning. If students and faculty aren't vaccinated, is it as safe to return in the fall, or is vaccination the best way to go?
Well, I think vaccination would be the best way to go, and I think the good example is here we are sitting just a few feet from each other. Neither of us is wearing facial coverings because we're both fully immunized. So we're able to do that. And being fully immunized and having your vaccine will give us a little bit more freedom. And one of the things that worries me about education is education is not just about the academic pursuits. We do want our students of all ages to be able to really live the educational life that includes activities with their friends, activities with the faculty, sports, and many other things that make that a lifelong experience. And if you're not fully immunized, you're not going to have the same access to the same activities and the same freedom.
That makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of talk about the idea that I don't have to get vaccinated because everyone else will. What would you say to somebody who has that kind of hesitancy about being vaccinated?
Well, there is some people are thinking a little bit more than others, and that always happens in immunizations. They're the early adopters that go in very quickly. Then there are those that think about it a little bit more, and there are those that have some confidence issues, which we're trying to address. But the reality of the matter is, if you think about it, this is one of the things that we all can do to protect ourselves, those around us, and help the community get back where it needs to go. So what I will say is don't rely on everybody else to be immunized around you. Make sure that you're immunized and encourage your friends to do so. And that's actually the best way to do it. Because for vaccines to be effective, a very large percentage of the population will need to be immunized, since we don't really want everybody to get sick and develop some partial immunity because of disease. We want people to get full immunity with the vaccine.
Is it possible to contract COVID-19 from getting vaccinated?
That's a very good question. And probably the most significant difference between these vaccines and some of the traditional vaccines is that there's no virus in it. There's no attenuated virus, there's no live virus, there's no piece of the virus. These are actually laboratory made to mimic portions of the virus that your body is going to generate antibodies to. So it is impossible for you to catch COVID because there's no SARS-CoV-2 virus in it at all. And I want to make one other point because I've heard that question before. So if this messenger RNA is going to my cells and it's going to tell my cells to manufacture these proteins, can that damage my cells? And the answer is no. It stays in the cytoplasm, never touches the nucleus, so it can't touch your DNA. And the messenger RNA is very labile. The moment it goes in, it basically almost disintegrates. So it doesn't last very long. It lasts long enough to generate the signals for the assembly of these glycoproteins, but then after that, it just degrades and goes away.
Wow. So a lot of people are saying that this vaccine is worrisome to them because it was rushed.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also read that this mRNA technology has been in development for quite a while. Can you help us understand that
Sure.
idea?
And I think what we have here is convergence of some circumstances that are rare. Number one, we had a global pandemic. That's rare. Number two, we had more resources leveraged for vaccine development that probably in the history of medicine, at least in my professional career, we've never seen this amount of money and resources, which includes collaboration by companies that typically compete with each other. Mm-hmm. They all came together to collaborate. That's number two. And then number three, as you pointed out, the messenger RNA is technology that was developed in the 70s.
Wow.
And by the 90s, we had been using that technology. It's been used in 4 other vaccines, Zika, rabies, cytomegalovirus, and flu. So it's not something that is new. It's something that we have a lot of experience with. But with the amount of resources and the collaboration, we were able to go through the 3 stages that are required. The process never changed. The 3 phases are the same that we go through for every vaccine, every therapeutic. The only difference is that we use a process called emergency use authorization, which is used in pandemics, for example, to release therapeutics a little bit earlier, just so we have access to them. But I can tell you that the vaccines are completing phase 4, and they will apply for full approval by the FDA, more than likely between the summer and the end of this year. So they're moving at a really, really fast clip. But the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are required, they all participated in the clinical trials. There were no shortcuts, no exceptions. No, you can do less. They had to go through every single step like any other vaccine or drug. Again, the only difference is the amount of resources that we had.
Wow. I didn't realize it went all the way back to the 70s. That's amazing.
Back to the 70s, and initially in the 70s, that was a breakthrough. Because if you think about it, some of the DNA and some of the genetic techniques and technologies we think they're from last year. They're not. They've been around for a while. Now, the groundbreaking work that generated that, it was pretty amazing for the 70s because we didn't have the technology that we have today, which is actually brings me to the last point that I should make. A lot of the technology that allowed us to do this that quickly is technology that we have been perfecting for the last 15 plus years and has been used for cancer therapeutics, has been used for a lot of other therapeutics that are currently in use and have been in use for many years.
Wow. Maybe one more question, if I
Sure.
could. We were talking about this just before we started this conversation. Can you speak to the concern that some people have expressed about reproductive health and the vaccine?
That's a really good question. So there's 3 pieces of that. I want to address all 3. Because we did talk about the young adult development. So the hormonal environment of the young adult does not impact the effectiveness or the safety of the vaccine. So let's get that out of the way. But I've also heard concerns about fertility and pregnancy. And the reality of the matter is that there's no evidence or data that supports any claim that fertility is impacted by the vaccine. As an example, we do have a number of women that became pregnant through the clinical trials and delivered. And just in the last week or two, we've had several studies that have been released with clinical trials specifically in pregnant women, all the way through term with analysis of the placenta and following up of the newborn. And the good news is safe in pregnant women, safe for the newborn. Actually, there is immunity that is transferred or conferred from the mother if you're breastfeeding to the newborn. And that's really, really, really important. So the theory that there may be some impact in infertility, there's really no evidence for that.
That's good. Thank you very much. And I'm sure that there are other questions out there that are floating around, and I'm sure that the Spokane Regional Health District has some additional resources. I know that we do at Eastern at insideewu.edu, but are there other resources on your website as well, Frank?
I'm glad you asked that question. So we have a ton of resources in the srhd.org. If you go there, you go a whole section on vaccines. We have information for families. We have information for students. We have everything that you can think about vaccines. In addition to that, we've had about 4 or 5 Facebook Lives just on vaccines with all of the facts, all of the data, and all of that is available through our website. So what I will suggest, if anybody has any questions, any doubts, which is fine, I can tell you before I got my vaccine, I read about it. I did some research, and because I'm not going to either do it or recommend it unless I have the knowledge to make that decision. Because at the end of the day, getting immunized is a personal decision. So our goal is to provide people with as much information so they can make a decision that is good for them. So if they have any questions, please go and check it out, because tons of information. You can even send us an email. We have, go there, you see it, you can send us an email and say, I have a question about, and we'll be happy to respond to you. I've responded to many questions that come from the community, and we're always happy to do that.
Well, thank you for doing that for the community, and thank you for taking some time with me today. I know being fully vaccinated, I'm looking forward to not having to wear a mask all summer when it gets really hot. So I appreciate your time, Frank, very much.
Me too, because with a mustache, it makes your nose itchy. So I'm actually very happy when I don't have to wear it in specific areas. Of course, there's still some precautions that we will take. I do appreciate the opportunity, and go Eagles, you know.
Go Eagles. Thank you.
Eagles.